Hey y'all, welcome to Paige's Perspective, where I help you find your inner strength to cope with life. Today we're going to chat about DARVO. DARVO was coined by Dr. Jennifer Freyd, a psychology professor and researcher at the University of Oregon. It's really a fancy way of avoiding accountability. It happens when someone you deeply trust violates that trust and then manipulates the story to avoid that accountability. It means deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. So it describes what often happens when someone is called out for their crappy behavior, their harmful behavior. Instead of acknowledging it, they, 1, deny it happened. They, 2, attack the person who's calling them out. They, 3, reverse roles, so they're suddenly the victim and the actual victim becomes the offender. I have a lot of experience in this area, so I'm going to speak from that and also help you recognize when this is happening and what to do about it. So I used to think that healthy communication could fix any problem, that if you just opened up, if you were honest about how you felt, you kept your tone pretty neutral, and if you stayed calm and clear, that the other person would meet you there. Because that's what healthy people do, right? And sometimes they do, but when someone has no interest in accountability, no capacity for self-reflection, or is actively trying to avoid responsibility, communication can become a trap and it's no longer a tool. So here's what happens. You bring up a concern. They deny, attack, and reverse the situation, DARVO. You try harder to explain. They flip it even further, and you leave the conversation feeling way more confused, way more exhausted, and unsure if you even had a right to bring up your feelings in the first place. This isn't healthy, and it doesn't typically occur in healthy relationships. Sure, we may suck at communicating occasionally, but most of the time, the conversations are pretty productive and leave you feeling somewhat accomplished. So communication only works when both people want to be honest and accountable. Otherwise, it becomes a loop that leaves you doubting yourself and defending your right to feel hurt. So what does it look like? What does DARVO look like? Let's say you say, that hurt me. And they said something like, oh, you're always so sensitive, or you're so sensitive. Why are you attacking me? I'm the one being mistreated here. You're always making me out to be the bad guy. So let's break this down. They deny the behavior. That didn't happen. You're exaggerating. They attack you for bringing it up by calling you crazy or saying you're toxic. The reverse role and then they reverse roles to become the victim. Like, I cannot believe you're treating me like this after everything I've done. Let's say that you're trying to set a boundary. You've caught someone in a lie and you've actually recognized the pattern. This is not the first lie you've recognized. And you say something along the lines of, I'm done with the lies. If it happens again, I'm stepping back. I can't keep doing this unless you're willing to be honest with me. Okay, here comes the lovely response. Wow. So I mess up once and suddenly I'm a horrible person. I can't believe you'd threaten to leave me over something like this. I've been trying, but clearly nothing I do is good enough for you. You love holding things over my head, don't you? So let's break down the DARVO here. Deny. I mess up once. Okay, they're minimizing the lie. They're ignoring the pattern, and they're actually lying right there because they say they mess up once when you know that they've messed up more than once. Attack. They say, you love holding things over my head. And then the reverse victim and offender. Now they're the wounded one. You're the one being unreasonable. And I get really, really fired up over this topic because I will see how spouses are judged in these situations. People will often ask, why do you keep tolerating this? How did you get in this type of relationship? Why don't you just set a boundary and stick to it? Why don't you stand up for yourself? So here's why. Because DARVO is a mind fuck. It is not always loud. It is not always aggressive. It is not always obvious. It is sneaky as hell. It is subtle, and it can make you question your own reality. It can take years to recognize what the fuck is actually happening, and it is so wrong to tell a spouse that they are part of the problem when they are just trying to communicate. But anytime they stand up for themselves, they lose themselves a bit more because, again, it is a mind fuck. You don't realize you're tolerating abuse when you've been conditioned to believe that you're the one causing all the problems. And if someone flips the script every time you speak up, you start to doubt your voice. You start to internalize their vision of the story. You think that maybe you are the problem. Maybe you do overreact, and maybe it wasn't that bad. So you stay around, you rationalize, you shrink, you minimize, you normalize, you stop standing up for yourself. But you also try to keep trying to explain yourself to someone who isn't willing to take accountability and meet you where you're at. We have to stop blaming the person who's been manipulated, gaslit, and emotionally reversed on for not reacting with perfect strength and clarity because, again, it's a mindfuck. It is difficult to stand up for yourself if you've been taught that your feelings are false and your truth is up for debate. But that's why we're here, to help you find your voice again. Our program, Independently Strong, will help you understand your relationship dynamics, how to set boundaries, communicate, how to find clarity within your situation. It's a self-paced program and comes with a weekly call with others going through the same thing. And if you use code Wheelie75, you get 75% off of the entire program. And you can go to tufo.com for that or independentlystrong.com. Okay, let's break down another conversation you may have brought up to your partner that is completely reasonable. All right. You said you'd be home at 7 and you didn't even text. This keeps happening. This is calm. It's grounded. You're not name calling. You're just pointing out a pattern that's causing stress and confusing. So you're saying, you made a commitment. You didn't follow through. You didn't communicate. This isn't a one-time thing. You're asking for respect and reliability, basic stuff in any partnership. It is not too much to ask, but you will begin to feel as though it is. So they may reply with this: I don't need to be micromanaged. You act like I'm a child. You don't trust me at all. And honestly, that's on you. All right. 1, deny. I don't need to be micromanaged. They skip right over the issue. They weren't where they said they'd be and didn't communicate. There's no, sorry, I didn't text. No, you're right, I said 7. There's no ownership in this response. So the actual behavior is never acknowledged. And then you get into the attack part. You act like I'm a child, or you're trying to control me. Now, it's not about them being unreliable. It's about now it's not about them being unreliable. It's about you being controlling and nagging or unreasonable. And they twist your valid frustration into an insult. This is where your brain starts to spiral and you're like, wait, was I controlling? Did I come off as rude? Was I being too much? Did I ask for too much? And then there's the reverse victim and offender. You don't trust me at all, and honestly, that's on you. Now, they are the victim of your distrust. The whole issue becomes your character flaw, your inability to trust, your need to control, your emotional baggage. So instead of the conversation being about their behavior, it's about your alleged insecurity. And here's the real kicker. You're now explaining yourself instead of them being accountable. You're apologizing for feeling upset instead of them apologizing for not showing up. The conversation could have been done in less than 5 minutes had they apologized and just changed behavior next time. So what's really happening is that you made a fair statement about their behavior. They made it a fight about you, your character. And this derails accountability and puts you on defense. Then you start questioning yourself, which is so wrong for them to put you in that situation. You have a right to ask for communication within your relationship. You're married. You would be respectful and communicate any changes to your schedule, I'm sure. This is just mutual respect. So you are not asking for too much. So how to respond? If you're ready to hold the line, okay? You can say, this isn't about control. It's about keeping your word. If you can't follow through or let me know when plans change, we need to talk about what that means for us. Please don't turn this into something it's not. Or if you need to, you walk away. And you say, I'm not going to argue about how I brought it up. You didn't follow through, and that matters to me. Let's talk when we're both ready to stick to the issue. So you've explained enough, and try not to get sucked into the loop of over-explaining, justifying, defending, because they won't hear you and you've already said it pretty clearly. So why do people DARVO? I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, but I'm just going to break down a few things. So it's easier to defend their ego than it is to sit in that discomfort. So for a lot of people, being wrong feels unsafe. Admitting they caused pain triggers shame. So instead of owning their part, they get defensive. Fast. They protect their ego by denying reality, blaming you, rewriting the story so they're the one hurt. It's not about the truth. It's about survival. To them, being right equals being safe. They'd rather rewrite the story than rewrite their behavior. So please hear me though. This is not an excuse to do this. The impact on you can be very, very damaging. Now, some people lack the emotional maturity to own their actions. So emotional maturity means sitting with discomfort, you take responsibility, apologize without flipping it, and that takes self-awareness, humility, and actual growth. But if someone has never developed those skills, accountability feels like an attack. So instead they minimize, they deflect, and they justify. They don't know how to say I messed up, so they convince you that you did. And another reason is that some people were just raised on deflection and truly don't know another way. If they grew up in a home where no one took responsibility, or apologies were weaponized or never given, conflict was always about winning and not resolving, then DARVO might feel normal to them. If no one modeled accountability for them, how would they know what it looks like? Again, this doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does explain why so many people repeat the toxic patterns without realizing how harmful they are. And sadly, some people do use it intentionally to manipulate and control. Let's just be honest. Some people know exactly what they're doing. They weaponize guilt, they twist your words, and they rewrite history to avoid the consequences, to keep the power, to shut you down. And they're not just defending themselves, they're playing a game. And the goal is you stay small so they stay unaccountable. They use your empathy as a tool. The more you care, the easier you are to manipulate. But the big point is that DARVO isn't always calculated, but the damage is the same whether it's strategic or just learned. Even if they don't mean it or they don't mean to do it, it still gaslights your reality. It still destroys your trust. It still keeps the cycle going. It still makes healing harder. So whether it's unconscious conditioning or intentional control, the impact is still harmful. And I know hurt people hurt people, and I know a lot of people DARVO, but that is only an explanation and it's not an excuse. So I talked about earlier how DARVO can be really subtle. And here's how you feel and what you notice. You bring up the valid issue, but suddenly the whole conversation becomes about their pain, their feelings, their effort, or how you are the one being unfair. It looks like we have to look for phrases like, I can't believe you think I do that. You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're the one always being dramatic. Or the one that's always bringing drama. You just love blaming me for everything. And this will make you feel confused or guilty for even speaking up. And they don't take ownership. They flip it as fast. So they flip it so fast that by the end, you're the one apologizing. So check yourself. Are you defending how you feel instead of them addressing what they did? Are you walking away from arguments feeling like you did something wrong, even for even bringing it up? Your truth keeps getting minimized or erased. They shift the blame, exaggerate your flaws. They bring up old mistakes to distract you from the actual issue. It feels like every time I try to say something, it somehow turns into me being the bad guy. Let me be real with you. You cannot talk someone out of DARVO. You will never explain it perfectly enough. You cannot say it calmly enough or express your feelings gently enough to make someone who uses DARVO suddenly go, oh, wow, you're right. I'll take accountability now. That's not how DARVO works. It isn't a communication breakdown. It's more of a control tactic, conscious or not. It's not happening because they didn't understand you. It's happening because they don't want to own what they did. And you think, if I just stay calm, they'll hear me. If I explain how much they hurt, or how much it hurt, they'll care. If I give them the benefit of the doubt, they'll finally get it. But every time you bring up your pain, they flip it to make you the problem. Every time you try to talk it through, they dodge, deflect, and defend. You're not being misunderstood. You're being manipulated. And again, intentional or not, it impacts you. It's a way to avoid accountability. You cannot communicate someone into emotional maturity. They have to choose it. You can model accountability. You can speak clearly and kindly, but if they're committed to flipping the script, no amount of explanation is going to land. If they aren't ready to take accountability, the cycle will continue. So here's a more subtle example of DARVO that many of us may miss and why it can take a while to understand what is happening. You know something is off, but you just can't put your finger on it. All right, you're bringing up a concern. Okay, I felt really hurt when you didn't show up for dinner after saying you'd be here. This isn't the first time it's happened, and I need to be able to rely on you. Here's them. Subtle. This is subtle. You know how much I love you, right? I've been under so much pressure lately, and I'm doing everything I can to hold it together. I'm sorry I let you down, but you've got to stop thinking the worst of me. I was literally looking at photos of us the other day and thinking about how lucky I am. You're the best thing in my life. I'd be lost without you. All right, let's break this down. It sounds sweet, right? But here's what's really happening. Because you know that there's something wonky about this, but you just cannot figure it out. Deny. There's no real ownership of what they did. It's just a vague, sorry, I let you down. Quickly brushed aside. The attack, which is subtle. You've got to stop thinking the worst of me. That implies that you're the one being unfair or overly critical. Reverse victim and offender. They position themselves as the overwhelmed, loving partner who's just trying their best while you're making it hard. And then there's a love bombing layer here. The flattery, the nostalgia, I was looking at photos of us are used to disarm you emotionally and redirect the conversation from the issue to the connection. So why does this work on us? Because it feels like love. It makes you second guess your feelings. Am I making too big of a deal of this? Maybe I should give them some grace. They clearly love me. Maybe I am being too hard. So I'm not a fan of the I'm sorry but response. It doesn't validate your feelings or even address the issue. You have a right to depend on your partner. We are meant to depend on our partner. So asking them to show up to dinner is fair and reasonable. The best way for this conversation to have gone is the person who DARVO'd could have said, you're right. I said I'd be there and I wasn't. That's on me, and I can see why that hurt you, especially because it's happened before. I don't want to keep breaking trust like this. I'm really sorry. I want to understand what you need moving forward, and I'll do what it takes to rebuild that trust. That's easy. Simple. That's really all we want, guys. So what makes it healthy is the clear acknowledgement that you're right, and that's on me, shows that they're not dodging or downplaying. They validate your feelings. They name why it hurt and connect it to your reality, not their excuses. There's no defense, no guilt tripping. They don't flip it or make it about how they feel first. And there's willingness to change. They express not only remorse, but a desire to take action and make things better. They're willing to hear you. So the bottom line is accountability doesn't come with a guilt trip. It comes with ownership. And it sounds like, I get it. You're right. I messed up. I want to do better. Not you're too sensitive. You're blowing this out of proportion, but I love you. So what can you do when DARVO hits? You stop arguing and you start observing. When someone flips the script on you, when they deny, attack, or suddenly make themselves the victim, your job is no longer to explain yourself. It's to notice what's really going on. And here's what that means. Instead of continuing the argument, you hit pause internally and you shift from emotionally reacting to mentally observing. You go from, how do I get them to understand me, to, wait a second, they're not even trying to understand me. This moment of awareness is everything. And it turns, why is this happening, into, oh, this is happening. So this shift matters because when you're being DARVO, the conversation stops being about the issue the second they flip it. It's about the power, the control, the deflection. It's not about connection anymore. And you're no longer in a dialogue. You're in a defense trap. And if you keep playing, you'll end up explaining what you already said clearly, apologizing for even bringing it up, feeling like you're the problem just for having a boundary. So step out of it mentally. Even if you're still in the room, you say to yourself, they're avoiding accountability right now. I don't need to keep talking to be valid. This isn't a safe conversation anymore. I'm not going to argue my reality. Then you either go quiet, gray rock, you restate your boundary once, or you exit the conversation altogether. Instead of defending, explaining, or justifying, go flat and calm, but don't abandon your truth. You can say things like, I'm not going to keep having this conversation if it keeps getting twisted. I brought up something real. You try to flip it. Doesn't change that. I'm allowed to have a boundary even if you don't like it. You stay neutral in tone and you leave it at that. This is difficult for some because it typically causes more DARVO and then an argument. And so being clear is important, and understanding you're communicating to protect yourself, not to get them to understand you. Don't beg to be understood. Don't keep chasing closure. Exit the loop. We can talk again when it's not about blaming me. I'm stepping away. This isn't productive. I'm not doing this with you again. Walking away doesn't mean giving up. It's just refusing to play this game. It's exhausting, guys. Set a boundary that's not up for debate. Instead of waiting for them to validate your feelings, take action. If this happens again, I'm not going to keep trying. If you can't have a conversation without flipping it on me, we won't be having conversations. My peace matters more than walking on eggshells. And then you follow through. Now, this one's important. Write it down, not to justify, but to remember. So it messes with your memory. DARVO messes with your memory and your confidence. So write out the facts. What happened, what you said, how it was flipped. So when the guilt hits later, which it probably will, you've got proof that it wasn't all in your head, but that's for you, not for them. Basically, state your facts with confidence, but don't expect them to hear you. If they aren't willing to take accountability and have a healthy conversation with you, that tells you everything you need to know. It's going to bring clarity to your situation. So if you're listening to this and thinking, wait, this is my life, you're not crazy, you're not weak, and you're not overreacting. You're probably someone who tried to fix things through honesty, through conversation, and even compassion, and got hit with some deflection, blame, and chaos instead. That's DARVO. And now that you've got the language for it, you can stop blaming yourself and start seeing it for what it is. And once you see it, you get to stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to, misunderstanding you or not take accountability. You stop arguing your worth. You stop twisting yourself into a version of you that's more palatable just to avoid a reaction. Because the truth is, you can't love someone into accountability. You can't communicate someone into emotional maturity. And you sure as hell can't keep losing yourself in the name of keeping the peace. You deserve real peace. You deserve safety. You deserve to speak the truth and be heard, not flipped on. So from here on out, if someone can't meet you in truth, then you get to meet yourself in power. There's no more fixing. There's no more chasing. There's no more doubting your gut. You see it now. And what do you do with that clarity? That's where the healing starts. So that's all I have for this week. Until next time, I'm Paige. Bye.